Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Earlier this week, my viewer, Mandy SpaceX 1087, requested that we do a little digging on Bill Gates, and we're gonna do that. There is so much material, I couldn't get it all into one little video, so I'll be peppering it in over the next couple weeks as well, I am sure. Before we do anything, I just wanna go ahead and make sure that I let YouTube know that the contents of this video are for entertainment purposes only. Now that that's been taken care of, let's watch some stuff.
That you continue to meet with him over several years, and that, in other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work.
All right, so I have an extremely difficult time when it comes to talking about trafficking, child trafficking, human trafficking, period, in general. Children, the most. I get so enraged that I cannot control myself. So, did you hear him say, well, he's gone, so we should be careful? That was not like what a human being should say. They should say, good, I'm glad he's gone. Everybody else, you need to come forward and step up and frickin' take your penance because this is crap. No, he didn't. Instead, he said, y'all, be careful, because you might end up like Epstein. We need to move on. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by today. If you're having a good time, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. If you're not having a good time, please hit that like button and still consider subscribing. Hey, and then while you're at it, come on back tomorrow because I'm making a new video every day.
The rich, the elite, and the banks are buying up all the farmland in the United States. Could this be some kind of sinister reason? A lot of people are thinking they're expecting some kind of calamity to happen and they're preparing themselves in case this happens. Well, there's also other reasons why somebody would buy farmland, and here's 4 reasons. Fourth reason may be a little bit sinister. Farmland offers long-term appreciation and also cash flow, which is very, very beneficial in a recession or if a potential recession is coming. But farmland has tripled in value over the last 20 years because of the population growth and has what's called intrinsic value, and it cannot go to zero because there's always a use for valuable farmland. And number 4, if everything goes to hell, they got farmland to feed their families.
I disagree. And it's because of what we've been talking about, right? As far as the depopulation plan in these smart cities, because these big, huge corporations are going to be the only ones that are producing food for all of the people that get to live, right? So if he owns all of this farmland, he's going to continue being the corporation. Plus, he's going to be passing away soon because he's an old guy. But he said he's only going to give each of his children $10 million. You know, that's it in cash. But they're going to be getting this property as well. So it's so that his children can remain in power as well after he does pass away, because he's an old guy, and old guys tend to do that.
We need to meet a new constraint, and that constraint has to do with CO2. CO2 is warming the planet, and the equation on CO2 is actually a very straightforward one. If you sum up the CO2 that gets emitted, that leads to a temperature increase. And that temperature increase leads to some very negative effects. The effects on the weather, perhaps worse, the indirect effects in that the natural ecosystems can't adjust to these rapid changes, and so you get ecosystem collapses. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to 0. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to 0. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
Whoa, did you catch that? I think that was edited. I really think that was edited. Because, as much as I want to say that Bill Gates is a shady person and he's got his hands in some sticky situations, I don't think he would go out and say that out loud in front of a conference. Not like that. Especially with all of the suspicion that's surrounding him anyway. Yeah, I think things like that get said in silence, in confidence, amongst other rich people that are helping make this happen, but not at a conference. I think that was edited.
Bill Gates wants to genetically modify mosquitoes. Is this fake news or real?
Incorrect. Fake news.
It's fake news. Okay. Explain.
The reference is from RFK Jr.'s tweet that he sent out where he retweeted someone talking about this mosquito factory in Colombia. And this guy basically put out a tweet saying, oh, look, Bill Gates has a mosquito factory in Colombia. It's the largest in the world. 30 million genetically modified mosquitoes are released every week into 11 countries. Because Bill knows better than nature, what could possibly go wrong? RFK Jr. then took it upon himself to retweet and say, should Bill Gates be releasing 30 million genetically modified mosquitoes into the wild? Part of the mentality of Earth as engineering object, what could possibly go wrong? So I really wanted to take issue with this because I do think that this is the sort of misinformation that both creates scientific illiteracy and damages and impacts negatively some of the significant progress that can be made in medicine and in science.
I really wanted to be like, what? He's releasing 30 million genetically modified mosquitoes? Like, I want to be pissed, right? I want to be like super angry about this because you're going to make somebody sick. But here's why.
So Bill Gates is funding a research lab that is making 30 million mosquitoes. Every week, 30 million mosquitoes. And they release it into about 11 countries. Okay, it's not all that bad, right? So these mosquitoes that have been breeded, they've been injected with a special bacteria called Wolbachia, and that bacteria blocks them from transmitting some viruses, right? And then when they release them into the wild, right, they now breed with other mosquitoes that are already existing. That's natural mosquitoes, right? And also now block those mosquitoes, right, from transmitting those diseases or viruses rather. Imagine there is a lab in Nigeria, right? And inside this lab, they produce mosquitoes that have been injected with bacteria, right? And those bacteria are anti-malaria. And then when they release these mosquitoes to Nigeria, those mosquitoes can in turn breed with the other mosquitoes, thereby making them anti-malaria. Wouldn't that be really cool?
So ultimately, it sounds like there's a goal there to eliminate all of these mosquitoes that are making people sick. So, you know, you can't have bad without the good, and you can't have good without the bad. So there's a good thing that he's doing.
Start to see people like Bill Gates gobble up farmland, and you read what his foundation says about farming when they say that we're going to have a particular type of agriculture. They want large blocks run by the government or by private consortia where they say we're not going to have animal-based proteins. We're not going to have stockyards. We're not going to have turkey farms. We're not going to have chicken. The academic mind always has the answers, but never in the real world. And they do a lot of damning.
Everywhere you look, small and medium-sized farms being gobbled up by these corporate mega farms because they can't keep up anymore. They can't comply with these endless streams of regulations that are coming down. We're seeing that in China now, where these giant mechanized corporate big government-controlled mega farms are displacing all these little small family farms that families have been farming for hundreds of years, in some cases longer. They're moving them all off their little plots of land and moving them into these big, horrific mega cities that they have built. And we're going to see that all over the world with the decimation of small farms. So if they're not bankrupted by economic forces, the government itself will shut them down.
Everything is falling apart. There is a shortage of food. Many people do not have enough money to eat every day.
I know that didn't have a whole lot to do with Bill Gates, but I wanted it in there for some context because that other video, right, where he said that's what he wants to do, he wants to be in charge. That's why he's buying up all of this agriculture. Plus, he's pushing this crazy vegan agenda. And he thinks that that's where it's going to be. People are going to come to him and he's just going to be making money over money over money generationally. And you're seeing this is being put into place because, like they said, these mega cities are going up and they're these smart cities, right? And these farms are being burned. They're taking the water away from Idaho. So we're just watching this happen. And he's making sure that when this happens, he's going to be in control of the food, which will ultimately put him in control of the people.
But now, something different. One company is trying to put the meat back in meat alternatives. And some investors are betting big. Here's CNBC's Kate Rogers.
This is real chicken, and so is this and this. Except it's made in labs and commercial food production facilities instead of being raised on a farm. It's called cultivated meat, made from the cells of animals, and is part of a burgeoning industry seeking regulatory approval. Eat Just is the first company to have approval to sell its cultivated chicken products in Singapore.
It is real meat. And instead of needing billions of animals and all the land and the water and all the rainforests you typically need to knock down to make that happen, we start with a cell. And you can get the cell from a biopsy of an animal, a fresh piece of meat, or a cell bank. Now we don't need the animal anymore.
All right. So as a carnivore, I am like thoroughly disgusted with that. I understand vegans and stuff. You don't want to eat the meat, but isn't it still eating the meat? Probably because I guess it's because you're not like taking the life of an animal is what I'm assuming is why it's okay for a vegan. And that's why Bill Gates is so heavily invested in this, because you're not actually taking the life of an animal. I get it. I got it. But it's still meat. That makes it okay? I really want to know, vegans. Does that make it okay? Yeah, because I'd rather just eat like real meat, like walking around, recently, meat. Yeah, gross.
Cows and other grass-eating species have a digestion system that emits methane. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. And so cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions. And so we need to change cows, just cows alone.
How are we going to do that?
Well, actually, of all the categories, the one that has gone better than I would have expected 5 years ago is this work to make what's called artificial meat.
So he's talking about the methane, I'm assuming, causing problems in the atmosphere by these cows. So if we do away with cows, not only can we do away the food that we are growing to feed them, but we also do away with this methane issue, right? I really like cow. Beef is so delicious. And that 3D printed stuff, I've showed it before. It's absolutely disgusting, and no. But that's just one of his ideas for helping with our ozone problem or our atmospheric problem. Here's another one.
Bill Gates thinks of himself as God, in control of the solar system. And that's why Bill Gates is now backing something called sun-dimming technology that would reflect sunlight out of the Earth's atmosphere, causing global cooling. But that doesn't stop Harvard University. Its scientists are testing that technology by spewing calcium carbonate dust into the atmosphere.
The White House announced it was funding a 5-year research plan with about something called geoengineering. They want to do is basically block out the sun by spraying aerosols into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight.
So yeah, that was actually an idea like a real proper idea, like, here, this is what we should do, that would mess with everything. There would be huge consequences from things like that. Just, it's ridiculous. It is, some of these theories are not plausible. Like, they don't seem like a smart guy came up with them. They seem like somebody who thinks they can make a lot of money off of this came up with it. Especially since he's buying up all of those frickin' farmlands. If he's pushing this no meat thing and this fake meat thing, then yeah, he's standing to make a ton of money off of it.
Bill Gates did not invent anything. The basic program was made by some mathematics professors in a college. The Office operating system was by a software engineer, and he bought it for $50,000. He's built the empire by creating patents on software. And the first WTO meeting in Singapore gave him tax concessions, which is why all the IT industry moved to India. The fact that Silicon Valley became India's Silicon Valley is because they could save $40 billion annually by paying lower wages for the same work. It was an outsourcing of software, all for Bill Gates. And then he started to put some of his money into philanthropy. And everyone thinks, wow, he's such a generous man. He gives so much. But I've done an analysis in the book. Every place he gives to is his former future markets.
So we have learned a lot lately about a lot of these individuals who participate in this philanthropy, also participate in a lot of distasteful other activities. And that has tainted everybody. Nobody looks clean anymore. Anybody that donates a large amount of money to any one given organization is automatically going to be looked at sideways. And that's just the way that it is. And it's because of people like Bill Gates, who seem to have their ties in other unsavory behavior. And yeah. Oh, speaking of him and all of these patents, it reminds me of Thomas Edison. He's a modern day Thomas Edison. He's just taking credit for all of this stuff that these other people are doing. It's like, hey, I did that, you know, oh, he bought this invention off of somebody and now it's his.
Look it up. Edison was a dick.
All right, so just in case you aren't aware, I want to point out to you the chess moves that are being played here. Research something called Event 201. Essentially, Bill Gates was trying to socially condition us to be prepared for COVID before it actually even started.
I'll pause to read, and you can go and look this up for yourself. Now, Event 201 is just part of the bigger agenda, which is Agenda 21. And I'm not sure if you guys caught his TED Talk, but he was preparing us with his TED Talk as well, saying that he thought the next global threat will be a pandemic. And now he's saying that we're going to have a pandemic in 2025. But anyway, what you're seeing playing out in society has already been planned for years. They're playing chess when most people haven't even bought a checkers board. But I don't think they realize that a pawn is actually the most powerful piece on the chessboard. Don't let that go of your crown shot. And you have this is actually on the official CDC's website. Part 2.
All right, so what I found for Event 201 was that it was an exercise that took place in New York in about October-ish 2019. And this exercise was basically what to do in the event of a pandemic. What was going to happen, who was going to be in charge of what we're going to need to have, all of these things. And it happened right before COVID-19 became a thing, which a lot of people find extremely suspicious. Right? And this particular video was made back in 2021, and that's around the time when Bill Gates also, supposedly said there was going to be another pandemic in 2025. And here we are at this point, all kinds of things are happening that are going crazy, right? Animals are being, taken out because of this bird flu that's traveling to cows, that's traveling to people, and it's just going like off the wall. And now we're just gonna have to sit back and See what happens. On that note, I'm going to call it for today. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Come on back tomorrow. We're going to watch some new stuff. I'm going to say different things, and it's going to be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day.